Welcome to another episode of the Harbinger Podcast. This time we sat down with Mike FitzGerald, the owner of FitzGerald & Sons Plumbing Company. I can't wait for you to hear how Mike has intentionally cultivated a culture of loyalty and friendship that has caused his business to flourish for over 40 years. Enjoy. So our audience is obviously mostly business owners, and they are very interested in stories. So first off, thank you so much for coming and joining us for this podcast. The first thing I want to ask you about is the story of FitzGerald & Sons Plumbing. Like, how did it start?
Yeah, so my dad started FitzGerald & Sons Plumbing Company. We grew up in Long Island, New York, and I graduated high school in 1984. And he literally lettered his plumbing truck in Long Island, loaded me up, dropped me off at the University of Delaware to go play lacrosse, and he kept coming and started FitzGerald & Sons Plumbing Company in Peachtree City, Georgia. My grandparents had moved down in the 70s, so they knew a lot of people in the community, and it was very helpful, getting started, having, a customer base already in place.
Were you doing plumbing in Long Island?
I was not. I literally graduated high school and I went to a place called St. Anthony's on Long Island, and then went to Delaware. I did not finish. I stayed there for 2 years and kind of just wanted to get after the work world. I had too much fun and not enough studies. So
turned out okay, I think.
Yeah. No, it's not for everybody. And then I joined my dad 2 years later. Now, my brother had already been down about a year before I was. He graduated from Gettysburg College and had a minor in accounting. And he kind of beat me down here by a year. And it was interesting when we first went to my dad to join the company. We were very small at the time. We're talking about 1985, the end of 85. And it was just, at first, it was me in a truck and then Rich in a truck and my dad. And then we slowly started hiring people. But really from 1987 up until 93, it was just learning the trade. And we stayed very small and got to know the community.
So by that time in Peachtree City, it was probably very different. How many restaurants were there?
That was not. It was
Partner's Pizza, maybe.
No, there was a place called Franken Fries. It was down, kind of where the Enterprise is,
yeah.
And it was very different.
Wow.
And it's interesting. Even back then, when I first moved here, Peachtree Parkway just ended at Crosstown Road, and there was no other. It was just
turn around.
Woods. Yeah,
Wow.
Yeah. It was just interesting. I remember playing golf for the first time when the first day Braylon opened up and Plantera. So I've been in the community a while now. Just the first day they opened, half of them weren't even ready to open. The fairways were, not quite ready. And
so when your dad moved down here, and your first brother moved down, was it just the three of you at that time?
That's correct. And our first employee, actually, that we had hired, other than the three of us, was Tommy Detmering, who's one of my service technicians currently.
I remember Tommy.
He's still with us.
No way.
Yeah.
It's awesome. I remember he was in the very first video we shot. Real tall guy with
the high and tight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in the last video we shot with him too.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, he was my helper, and him and I worked together for years, and we're still working together here 40 years later.
Well, that's very rare.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear how you went from, you said it was just three guys in a truck, each with now you're how many trucks, and at what point did that start to tip?
Oh, so my dad passed away in 93, and Rich and I decided it was time to kind of, we had been in the field digging holes and fixing leaks, and we decided we wanted to kind of speed up the growth process. So we ended up hiring and taking on smaller commercial jobs and continuing to do service. Of course, marketing was way different back then. It was phone books, and that was it. And we just started growing from there. So my dad and I are very much alike, and he didn't want to grow real rapidly right away. But once he passed in 93, Rich and I said, let's start to grow this thing. And we still worked in the field, but then we slowly started hiring.
At what point did you know it was going to work? Like this growth mindset, was it a particular project you guys landed or executed that you're like, we can do this and we can do this at a big level?
I think as we started growing and getting some really qualified people, we started taking on bigger commercial plumbing jobs. As far as the service, we've always kind of just we kind of grew with the area, so to speak. The Olympics was helpful, especially on the contract side. But we're almost two different businesses operating as one. We have a service business and new construction commercial. We don't do any houses, or very few in our history, maybe friends. It's just been kind of a slow growth process, but definitely we kind of increased the growth rate once my dad had left and passed away.
You said that marketing was different back then?
Yeah, I mean, back in the day. So I was the marketing guy up until I hired Harbinger, by the way, which is 7 years ago. We've been working together, roughly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was phone books. I would meet with, the Yellow Book and AT&T and then of course you'd commit, and then the books would go into print, but you wouldn't see them for 8-9 months. And then of course, some people wouldn't throw away their own phone books, and so there would be multiple phone books, and it was a very cumbersome way to market. And then people obviously that got out of the phone book, some people don't throw away their phone book. So it's I used to keep them all on my shelf, all the marketing. And it was the Rotary book of Peachtree City. That was really one of our best marketing tools for years, because Peachtree City people looked at the Rotary phone book. And
do you remember, were you around when we put the call tracking number in the Rotary phone book?
No, but I know that I've seen the calls in the call tracking system. Yeah.
From old reports, because I remember that was the last thing that I think you cut. You're like, well, let's see it, let's track it and see.
Well, it's funny because I at one point I figured out, the best part of the phone books as they started becoming obsolete was getting on the spine. So when the Rotary phone book was put in the bank in the racks, it was like a billboard. People walking into the banks, FitzGerald and Sons Plumbing Company on the spine, stacked 50 high. So there was value to that, right?
Because they weren't opening it.
No. But then that's kind of why I stayed in those last couple of years. But then after meeting you guys, we just had to stop. But it is interesting. Back in the day, you couldn't grow rapidly through marketing because the process took so long. Now you just throw money at Google, and companies can actually go from 2 trucks to 10 in a much shorter period of time. It's just changed the game.
So going back to your story, how long did it take y'all to go from 2 trucks to 10 trucks after your dad passed away?
Because we do new construction commercial, we were just we were very conservative with our marketing budget. Because we were so ingrained in the community, and we also do marketing things like supporting the high schools and the sporting, the programs in the high schools. But it's always been a very slow growth based on having qualified people that, the way we like doing things is bringing people in an entry level, men and women, because we do have some female techs now and helpers. And we like to teach them how we do things, and then let them grow through the company, get their license, and then put them in a service truck. And it's frustrating sometimes because you spend a lot of money training, and then they get impatient, and they, somebody gets a hold of them from a commission-based plumbing company, which we are not, and they offer them the world, and then you lose guys as you're growing, and it's just
Do they come back?
Some of them, yeah, some of them do actually, but it's okay. I mean, it's just how it is, right? So, but we've always, because we do contract work, and the majority of our sales are in the contract work, we've been patient with the service. And so to answer your question, from 2 trucks up to, I think we're running 14 now, 13, 14. It's taken 25 years, right? So, and that by design.
Yeah.
You were talking about the pay structure and how commission versus how you guys do it. Has that always been how you've done it? And why do you do it that way when most others don't?
Yeah, we do it that way because 2 reasons. One, I have the ability with commission plumbers. The good part about commission plumbers, they can make some more money when it's very, very busy, but when it slows down, they go home. because they're paid on commission. If they're not bringing in money, they're not being paid. Because I have contract side, it's really worked well having the two companies. Like if we get slow service, I can lend a couple guys to the commercial side, and I guarantee all my guys 40-hour pay week. And I say, you'll, as long as you work here and you come to work, you'll be guaranteed 40 hours. And having contract work enables me to do that. Now, we haven't needed that in a good bit, but during our infancy, that we did a lot of that swapping back between the two divisions.
Is there a different type of plumber that needs to accept that or want that? I mean, it seemed like I could see the commission plumber being a little hungrier. Is that something that you have to balance of the type of person you bring in?
Well, the reason we've never gone that direction, and it's just a choice, is because, the downside of commission-based service companies is sometimes they can sell things that aren't entirely necessary, or they're not giving options that may be a cheaper solution because they're getting a spiff off the ticket, the total cost of the ticket. So, and we just decided we didn't want to incentivize to do that. So, I can tell you I've been tempted over the years because it's a lot easier to motivate people based on dollars. But what we try to do is build a culture of loyalty, which is loyalty is a two-way street. And you really have to treat people well and make them feel like they're a part of something. We do things like fishing trips. Last weekend, a bunch of my key people went and did this mudding competition. I wish I knew the real name of it, but they had a ball just getting together, off hours, and it's just amazing. We get together at the Christmas party every year, and people generally like each other and care for each other. And it's a really neat thing as long as you can cultivate loyalty in your company. Now, it doesn't say that people don't leave. Of course they do, and sometimes it works out for them. So
what have you done to cultivate that culture at your company?
I mean, honestly, it's really just one thing. You have to care for them like, they care for your company. It's a two-way street, and you can't fake it. And you got to be there for them when people, pass away. You got to be there for them when they're having difficulties in their house, and you get to know them, personally. And it's amazing, with AI and all these new technologies coming up. Anytime I talk about this with friends who own business, I said, don't spend too much time worrying about AI, especially with what I do. We're in a people business. We have to communicate and spend your resources cultivating loyalty, and I think that's some of the best advice, because to grow, you can't do it. My brother and I can't do it by ourselves. We have to have caring people to, it's the only way you develop a good reputation, and is to have people that care.
So why did you make that decision? Whereas a lot of companies, they could hear exactly what you're saying and say, I'm going to choose to not go that route, and they do it. And so my question to you is like, what made you say, no, I'm going to look after our people first? So the way you were raised with your dad?
Yeah, I would say it's just the relationships, I mean, the relationships, I can't. So I'll tell a story, okay? And you guys know this, but 3 years ago, it was like a brother to me, a gentleman named Tim Rice, he was one of the first employees we had hired. And he was just this wonderful guy that would work 50, 60 hours a week and always available, never let me down. And one Saturday, I got a call, and he had passed away very suddenly. And my first reaction, my brother was retiring that week, and my first reaction is, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then this amazing thing happened. I had all these other long-term employees step up and just pick me up and So that's why, like, it comes back to you if you're extremely loyal to your people and spend money on them when it's hard, and support them. It comes back threefold. I mean, and it's an amazing feeling. I didn't see it at the time. I was in panic mode, but I can't even tell you how rewarding it's been. Jimmy Beebe and Louis Larry, these are my two service managers now, and I won't get into a ton of names here because they're all special. I've got techs like Scott Ard and Tommy Detmering and Chris Lovelace, and again, now I'm going to leave people out, but it's amazing how loyal they've been to my brother and I, and it's really what makes us, in my eyes, special. Yeah.
Was that an intentional plan? When it was, you said 93, your dad passes away, so you and your brother are taking over this company. Did you guys sit down and talk about this? Like, this is the type of company we want, or was it more, let's just go, and it kind of organically formed that way?
No, I think it was, we always went about things with a sense of urgency. Growing up in the Northeast, people move at a pretty quick pace in the work world, and it really benefited us coming to Georgia, and it's just that, a sense of urgency. My dad taught us things like, hey, be on time, do what you say you're going to do. And if you can't do what you say you're going to do, make sure you call them before you're supposed to do it, and don't call them after and say, sorry, I'm an hour late. Just simple things like that, do what you say you're going to do. People, say that a lot, but it has so much meaning because your first impression with the customer, you're building trust. The very first communication, if you show up 10 minutes late, you've broken their trust. And these are simple things, but they are a foundation of a successful company.
Have you found that, I hear a lot about various business owners of your age talking about the younger workforce today. Is that something that you see is more difficult to instill in them, or is it just something that they naturally see is the FitzGerald way?
A mix. We have a young man working with us now in the service department who literally just got his license. He's very young, and he's doing an amazing job. But I will say this, that loyalty has become a little bit more difficult to cultivate with the younger generation. And mostly I think they just have more opportunity. I don't think it's, I'm not going to sit here and blame a generation for being different. It's just different times. So, but it doesn't mean we give up. I mean, it means we have to do things differently and try harder and try different techniques. And but I have lost some techs here recently to go to greener pastures, and we just do what we do, and they leave. We're disappointed, but we try to bring somebody new in and repeat the process. And we've got a lot of good young apprentices right now in our company, and it's really exciting because as AI, you're starting to hear this more in the business community. Plumbing, what we do, we're AI proof. Like you can't have AI come out, and I say that you can obviously learn things, but nobody wants to climb into a trench and fix a sewer line, right? Or go 11 o'clock at night, fix somebody's water main. These got to be fixed by a human being. So and a lot of guys, a lot of kids. My son's 23 and went to Kennesaw for 2 years. Ironically, he followed a very similar path to me. Left college. But it's interesting, even his friends that I see that are graduating college, they're still having a hard time finding jobs. And most of them have, but it's just, college just isn't for everybody. And one thing I will tell you about learning a trade, even if you do get tired of it, it's something you keep with you your entire life. Meaning, like, if you have problems in your own house in the future, you'll know how to do stuff, and you don't have to call me, right? So there's a lot of value to even trying it. And 100%. Working a couple of some.
How have you been able to bring in young talent like that? I know you mentioned apprenticeships, but a lot of the businesses we talk to, their number one challenge is talent, like being able to attract, retain talent, and they're looking for people who want to come in and learn as well. So how have you gone about cultivating those opportunities with that generation?
So, a lot of it is word of mouth, and you get entrenched in a community for all these years that we've been here. You just get to meet a lot of people. We're going out into people's houses. I used to coach lacrosse and football in the youth programs here. In fact, I just hired my running back. When he was 7 years old, he and I won't use his name, but he went to school to be a computer designer. Wow. And got a full degree. And I was actually out at his mom's house. She had a gas leak, and I said, "Hey, how's Jack doing?" And he's like, "Well, he's having a tough time." I said, "Well, we do designing at my company. We do CAD work, and we design. We take plumbing jobs and redesign them, and then we fab them in our fab shop, and we send them out." I said, "So his computer skills would meld perfectly with this, but of course he'll have to go out and work out in the field for a couple of years to learn plumbing." And so he started with me 3 or 4 weeks ago, and
Wow.
and it's just, I coached him in football. I knew him, but similar stories. Like a lot of the people that come to us, I have 2 techs. That their dad, Scott Ard, who I mentioned earlier, it's his 2 sons. And Cody, who's a licensed service tech now, his son came to work for us for a year and decided he wanted to go do something else. So, but really, it's just that word of mouth and other family members. I have another tech named Jason Webb. His daughter was working on my commercial side, putting in pipe on these commercial jobs, and we decided she might be better suited to come down and join the service department. So we went to her dad, "Hey, would you like to work with your daughter?" And she does a great job. And so we're like one big family, honestly. And it's word of mouth, and people do want to be a part of something. I firmly believe that. I think you're probably learning that in your own business right now.
100%.
Yeah. They want to feel a part of something, and it's up to the business owners to use that as a tool to cultivate loyalty.
And if you wouldn't have made the commitment to grow as a business, then they wouldn't have had an opportunity to grow into something greater. And so, I mean, that's amazing. I want to go back to what you talked about on the commission side, because I think that's really important. I mentioned at lunch that I had one of your guys out to come look at a problem I was having in my sink. And it didn't hit me until just now you're talking about the commission model, because he looked at the sink and he said, "Well, whatever contractor did this project, like totally did it wrong. Like I guess it was the disposal system will never be right until you literally like undo all this piping." And so I was like, "Oh my gosh," like I was just thinking I just paid someone to do this in my kitchen, And he said, "Well, if it were, well, how long are you going to stay here?" That's what he asked me. And I was like, "Well, I don't think we'll probably be here, that much longer. One day we want to build on some family land." And so he said, "Well, if with knowing that, this is what I would do." And it was like a tenth of the cost of just replacing the entire island. And so that in that moment, if he was commissioned, I imagine he would have wanted me to just redo the whole thing. But it's the same mindset you have about long-term thinking, like having a perspective that is, further out, not short-term gratification, but long-term. I'm sure he prefers not having to sell something that didn't need to be sold.
Yeah.
He probably enjoys that.
Yeah, I think it is effective. I mean, plumbing's a little different than some of the other trades because we don't have big equipment costs other than maybe a water heater. So we really are selling services, and I am tempted sometimes to see what the commission world would look like, but I think we're pretty happy the way we run our business, and we know what our profit margins are, and we're going to probably just keep doing what we're doing.
Well, obviously, I would have continued to use you either way because I wouldn't have known any different. But I will say, someone who experiences that and they're like, "Wow, that was amazing." They didn't have to sell me something. Instead, they had a workaround that builds loyalty long term. They'll never want to use someone else again.
Yeah, and one thing I've learned about the customer base, at least the one we deal with, is you really can't ever predict the people that are going to be fine with your pricing or the people that are going to complain about you. It is completely random. I had a phone call this morning, and some folks don't understand the insurance costs related to what we do, the amount of money we have to put into trucks and cameras and equipment. And so, you just try to call them back and assure them that you're being given the same pricing as everybody we do work for. And we also give the pricing on the front end. So there are no surprises. This is what it's going to cost to do this. They agree to it. But a lot of times you'll get like dad getting involved with a daughter and said, I can't believe you charged $250 to do this. And it's, you just got to take the time and explain to them the challenges of running a business and what happens if we flood your house and I have a $40,000 insurance claim. And, there's a lot of costs involved that the average folks don't see. So.
I'm curious, you were talking earlier about all of the family members who now work at FitzGerald and Sons. And what does it mean to you to have the last name of the company and to carry on a legacy and maintain that, over now, what you said, 40 years or so? And is that a heavy burden, or is it something you even think about anymore?
No, it's funny, so right about the time we hired Harbinger, my brother and I, my brother wanted to rebrand the company. Sorry, Rich, I'm just going to tell this story. But at the time we were running a lot of big Isuzu box trucks and the letters were huge. And I would hear all the time, I see your trucks everywhere, right? Well, I made the point to him. I said, we're not Coca-Cola, we're not, our branding's different. All I want is people driving around on the roads to see that that's my truck. Like, it doesn't have to be catchy. They just got to be able to read it and know it's mine. And you see it all the time. Companies that have trucks that the colors aren't right, and you just can't make out the name, right? And just keeping it simple and using your trucks as billboards. You got to have them lettered. It's the cheapest marketing you can have, honestly. So
you don't ever think about, like, your son now is in the business.
Right.
Is the plan for him to be you someday? And do you think about what that means to set him up for success?
Well, we have different personalities, and he's 23 right now, so his is developing. So it's just too early to say, but I've been the people person of the company for all these years, and my brother was more the spreadsheet guy, a minor in accounting, super smart, but so we had different roles. I got a lot back from my relationships with all the people. So, but as far as my son, he's doing a really good job. And we decided to just put him in an entry-level position and let him learn the business from the ground up. He's 2 years in, roughly, and he's doing great. And he's getting more comfortable. This is the most difficult part with the younger generation is they're always looking at their phones, and it's, you got to get them comfortable talking to the customers, because it's the most important part of what we do is building trust, communicating. I mean, we're a business that comes in your house, and that's got its own set of challenges. So building trust is paramount, So he's working on all these skills right now, and he's actually doing a really nice job, and he's getting better. It's hard. Talking to people and coming across as a 23-year-old guy confident. And I've got several young techs that are doing a great job with the plumbing aspect of it, but we're working on the communication skills because, as I said, they spend a lot of time looking at their phones.
Do you guys have a plan for that, or is it just throw them to the wolves, kind of, here they are with a customer, now go do it? Or is it any form of like structured, kind of?
No, we do structured training, but that is just a function of being with a tech, riding with a tech for a couple of years before you even offered a job to be a service technician. And they just watch and see how they communicate with the customers. What words are effective, what words are not effective, So that's the best training, honestly, is to get with a guy that's been doing it for years and see what works. I've got some great guys, great communicators that sometimes aren't, the most thorough plumbers, and vice versa. They're two very different skill sets. So, but we work on, it's hard to find people. And if we get them in, they're committed and they're as loyal to us as we are to them. We stick with them, and eventually it is a great outcome,
What's been your biggest business challenge, maybe from COVID to now? I feel like the 93 probably to 2000, maybe 8, there was probably a stretch there. And then obviously the 08, 09 dip. And then from a COVID to now standpoint, like what's been the change in the industry, both as a service company, but just you guys specifically?
Yeah, so COVID kind of threw us for a loop, just from the standpoint of the fact that we go into people's houses, right? And there was no textbook when it started. I mean, we did not know what to do, if I have a guy that I suspect has COVID, how do I send him into somebody's house? What's going to happen? What's the liability? So we were a little different than, but a really interesting happened one day. It's the only time I've ever gotten really emotional in front of my employees, but I have a picture in my office. I'll have to show, I think you've seen it.
I've seen it.
Yeah. But I basically went out back and I had 2 techs that were home and they were really sick and we were all scared. Nobody knew what was going on. And I just asked them all to stay. I said, guys, I can't, I'm not going to close. I said, but I'm going to tell you right now, if you guys don't want to be here and you want to go home to your families, I understand. I will protect all your jobs. And the picture that's in my office is everybody that stayed. And it's I think 25 people, all had masks on, distanced. And we were doing our best. But that's the stuff that's really powerful when, as a leader, you're saying, hey, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to keep answering the phone because these poor people can't live without water and hot water. And if they can't flush their toilets, it's a real health threat, and so I'm staying. And, I'd say 98% of them all stayed with me. And that's probably the most gratifying moment in my business career, honestly.
Was it like a rip-roaring speech? Like I'm staying, like Leo DiCaprio style?
No, I actually, no. I wasn't beating my chest.
Exactly.
Yes, but no, it was emotional. I don't take it lightly that I'm asking people to go into other folks' houses with a pandemic we know nothing about. And there was so much bad information out there. No, so one of my longest time texts, Scott Ard was homesick, and it became emotional, and just told him your job's protected, and if you want to go to your family, go. And it was just amazing that they stayed. So yeah, good day.
Has there, now that we're clear of it, has the industry changed at all COVID, or is it just back to, as you see it, just kind of what it was pre-COVID now?
Well, what happened to us is so many people were home. So the service end of my business got so busy that I kind of backed out of doing alteration work. I was doing work with a couple local contractors, and one of my plumbers left to go out on his own to do alteration work. And I said, hey, kind of grabbed a meeting and said, I want you guys to get together, and here you go do his work. And because service was so busy, I didn't have the resources to renovate people's houses, because those jobs take days. Most service calls are hours. So it was an allocation of resources. And then it got so busy that I remember calling Harbinger one day. I said, hey, you got to do less because I can't keep up. And me paying, I don't know if you remember.
I
this.
remember.
Yeah. But
made me smile.
But you also cut my monthly fees, so that was nice.
Hey,
right.
A partner.
No, I know. But it was just, we were so busy. And of course now, what's going on now with tariffs and, we've been fortunate. Like we stay busy. My biggest concern is sometimes we're not as responsive because I have a lot of customers waiting, and I don't have a quick fix for that. All we can do is be honest. But we're in a good spot right now as far as workflow. We get buried sometimes, but it's pretty rare now that we're sending guys home at 40 hours because I don't want to pay the extra overtime of unproductive labor. So it doesn't happen very frequently.
If someone was starting plumbing right now and they had one truck and it was them in the field and they had just hired their first employee, what advice would you give them for how to build a company from there?
I would just tell them to treat people the way they like to be treated. There are a lot of ways to get your point across to a coworker, without being a jerk and without, talking poorly in front of other people to them. And it took me a long time to learn a lot of these skills. I used to be a bit of a, intense Yankee when I first moved down here. I'd get pretty wound up at times, and you just, over the years, you learn what's effective and what's not, and it is completely unnecessary to ever belittle somebody or treat them poorly, because it just doesn't work. People are valuable, and they'll go elsewhere. I'm sure you've learned
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah. Right. But I think I'd start with that, and then do what you say you're going to do. My second bit of advice. How complicated is that? You say you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah. That's funny. The best advice is often simple. Yeah. It's easy to say. It's just hard to live, because it takes sacrifice. It takes you not looking, what's today, but longer term with people.
Right. And it comes back to you. It's just, I can't even explain to you how amazing it is. You got to go through some hard times to figure it out and realize it. But when it comes full circle, it's an amazing thing. It makes you not want to sell your company, which obviously there are a lot of opportunities in today's economy. There's a lot of private equity money, and we've made the decision to take this to the next generation. It's not just my son, it's my brother, my partner's son, Matthew, who's 10 years older than my son. He worked out in the field for a good bit on the commercial side, and got up, work every day at 5 a.m., and whether it was hot, cold, did everything everybody else did, and now he's an estimator with our company.
So I think there's value in stopping and celebrating that, because the truth is, there's a lot of business owners that I talk to that, because of what their children saw, they want nothing to do with that business. So I guess my question to you is, we have a core value at Harbinger called living intentionally, and it's this idea that it's not just work. We're responsible for every aspect of our lives, our family, our friends, our body, our soul. We're not just workers. That's what we do, but it's not who we are. So when you think about your career and what it is that your son saw, how have you been able to live intentionally? How have you been able to make your life be structured in a way that it's even something you want to still be a part of, you don't want to sell? Whereas a lot of people, they get through the hard time and they're like, I'm out. What made you that way?
So I guess maybe I can answer it this way. My son's out working with all my other coworkers, and I think he sees the relationships I've bonded and cultivated, and he works with tons of different people, and I think, it's hard being in a family business. I know and it can be very difficult. But my brother Rich and I can count on my hand how many really bad dust-ups we've had during our business relation. Mostly, I've got a little stronger personality than my brother, so I think at some point he just got tired of arguing with me and just. But the point is, we've always had boundaries and we've pushed them, but never really. And now that he's retired, it's weird. We didn't spend a lot of time outside of work together, because everything was about keeping the work right. It's really hard to do both, be hanging out with your brother and then working with him all day. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. Some people can pull it off, but because of that, we made work the priority. I'll tell you who it's hard on is my mom,
I bet.
Because, when we were outside of work, we'd go this way and she'd be like, oh, where is everybody? And we'd spend time together, but we played lacrosse together in Atlantic Club, but it's worked for us, and now he's retired and we're on the other end of it, trying to take this to the next generation, and we got a wonderful relationship. We really do. I think more of my brother than anybody walking this planet. So
when's retirement for you?
Oh man, I don't know. It's not all fun and games at retirement. I pay attention to what's going on around me, and you see people retiring and then coming back, one thing money, as a standalone is even I mentioned, about companies wanting to buy other companies, and, one of the reasons we don't do it is because then what do you do, right? It's we would be set for life, but why my life is fulfilling is because of all these relationships, and just people coming to me with problems and me being able to help people. And if that goes away, is my life going to be as meaningful, So, and some people figure that out and they do great, play golf 5 days a week.
And it sounds pretty nice to me.
Yeah. But it's got its set of challenges. It really does. And it's a balance, right? And I think the balance of, like I mentioned at lunch, really trying hard now to take my company to where it truly runs itself, because I have so many caring people working in the company that care for the brand and the family. It can be really rewarding. So
tell me more about that journey, because I would say, the failure rate of someone starting a business and actually getting a business up and going is obviously very high, but the process of getting to a point where it actually runs itself and you own an asset is even more challenging and more difficult. So what have you done to get to that point where you have a self-running business?
Yeah. So, most everybody is in a key position. My coworkers, they've come in entry-level position. There's a couple people that haven't, one of my estimators, but most of them we give opportunity, and in their sacrifice on the front end. You don't make a lot of money as a plumbing helper, but it's with coworkers that have a vested interest in the company, that want to grow in the company and have additional opportunity and advance both professionally and financially. So I think that's the biggest tool too. So recently, I hired another service manager and kind of have a residential service manager, Jimmy Beebe, and Louis Larry's my commercial service manager. They both started out, entry level helpers, then techs, and Louis's been with us for over 30 years. But that's our formula, And so what I've done now is I've tried to, for all these years, up until maybe 2 or 3 years ago, when my brother retired, I was in the middle of a lot of the relationships, right? So I'm making concerted effort to try to put a little bit of a buffer between all the needs of my coworkers, and let my key people handle most of it, and then bring me the stuff that's really critical. And because it does get stressful, if you care about somebody and they're really struggling, it's hard not to emote that and take it with you, So for me, I ended up having a stint a couple of years ago, and I decided maybe I got to reduce my stress a little bit, because that's evidently not very good for your heart. And it's been great. Everybody stepped up, and it's actually happening as we speak. And I'm just so grateful for all these folks, Maggie included.
I was about to say, I've actually felt that on my side, because you've let Maggie come in a little bit and handle some of the stuff on the marketing side, which, I always felt at times I was hounding you because you had so many other things, and Maggie can kind of take that on, which selfishly, it's been great for me. Andre and I appreciate it. I know that.
Yeah, we're still working on my bio, by the way.
I know we are. It's still coming. His bio has not been on this website for...
I remember requesting that back in the day.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
Just
it's always
info.
Next week.
Well, I think after this podcast, we can write it.
It's true. That is true, now that I think about it.
We have all the dates.
Yep.
We have where we went to college, where we went to high school. We got it all.
We can absolutely bang that out. I didn't even think of that. That's a great idea.
Finally. This is all rude. We just set this up.
Literally just for this.
It says coming soon.
It does.
It's finally here.
I'm actually curious. You were talking earlier about being AI proof, obviously, as what you guys do, but knowing that is going to change things. What do you see the next 5 years looking like at the company? Where's the company in 5 years? Where do you want it to be? And what challenges are you kind of, looking toward?
We've always made an effort not to grow too rapidly. It requires cash, and so we've always, and my brother was great, a very conservative mind, so we don't really have very much debt, and it's served us well because we grow, slowly. And the service department, we're going to continue to try to grow. I've got enough people in the office answering phones, and for me, it's just a function of finding the right service techs to trust to put in the houses. And like I said, we got a bunch of good young guys right now. On the contract side, we're open shop. So, I can't just pull from a bunch of employees out of a union hall, or we hire the best people that we can find that are available, and that kind of means that we can't grow real rapidly on the contract side. Because if I don't have enough people to put the pipe in, you end up stressing the people that you rely on to get the work done, your project managers and superintendents, and it's just unfair to them. They don't have the people. So it's an ever-changing game. It really is. You either have too much or you have too little, and it's very rarely, but we're in a good spot right now. So
where do you see marketing efforts changing with how you operate your business, or do you think it's kind of you've hit a stride where we kind of know what we want to do, and we're just going to kind of keep plugging forward?
Yeah, so we're really not motivated right now to make our service company much bigger so we can sell it. That's not a thing. We concentrate on trying to give the customers reasonable, fair pricing, and we know where our profit margins are, and we don't feel the pressure to grow, because it's what really dictates the growth is having the qualified people to do the work, and if it's not there, why grow, But we've been slowly adding maybe a truck a year, maybe every 2 years at times, but and we're fine with that, My brother and I kind of like the size that we are right now. I mean, obviously there's a lot of liability with all the work we do, dealing with gas and floods and water. And so, growing, would be important, if we had this plan to sell it in 15, 20 years. But right now our focus is to take it to the next generation. And I'd love to see my son and my nephew have the same ride that I just had, or I'm having. I just about to turn 60 in a year or so, and that's my hope for them. Is to find a balanced life that is, surrounded by caring people that are looking out for your family. I mean, it's pretty cool.
It really is, and that's the American dream right there. That's what every business owner wants. But so few are able to achieve because of what you talked about. They usually can't find the right group of people. But I love what you've shared today, because it's all about this idea that if you invest in people, if you take care of them, if you look after them, like, they'll take care of the business.
Yeah, I had another tech who died very suddenly. This is probably 15, 20 years ago. It was pretty tragic and sudden. And I got a call a year and a half ago or so, and his son, who was literally 2 years old at the time, wanted to come work for us, and now he's a helper, and he wants to be a service
That's awesome.
tech. Yeah, it's neat stuff, right? And I was close to his dad. This is when I was in the middle of everything, and he's a good guy, and it's just cool to have the son of this person that left us so quickly. Again, I think he wants to be a part of something, right? And that's cool. So.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So I'm curious, when people, and by the way, thank you for all the times that you've taken calls from companies we're talking to.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what is it that you tell them when you finally get on the phone with them and they say, so tell us about Harbinger?
Well, I tell them they can't do it alone. I mean, marketing now has become so complicated, okay, with social media and pay-per-click. And I mean, I've been doing it now with you guys for 7 years. I don't fully understand it. I'll be honest with you. I act like I do, but I don't. But it's just, you need somebody to make the decision. So like I said, I used to do it all: phone books, meet the pushy salesmen, and beat them down.
Very pushy.
Yeah, I would tell them, no, I'm not doing anything this year. They call me back 3 days later. All right, what's your price now? Just these games. But now it's so complicated. You just got to find the right company, and then just watch the results. So yeah, I view our relationship as a partnership. I was telling Parrish this, because I need you guys as much as you need me. And also you have treated me very well over the years. So. So I'm glad to do those things for you, honestly. And I've run into contractors that I didn't know before. I would tell them, Paris. One time I got put on speakerphone at my accountant. My accountant is Large and Gilbert, and they had an office up in Atlanta. And this electrician's got me on speakerphone asking me about you guys. And that thing led into like, hey, you open shop, what are you, and it was just funny, the whole thing that here I am talking to my accounting firm, who I trust, obviously, and I'm doing marketing for Harbinger Marketing. Yeah, it's just quite
We appreciate
ironic.
that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, really appreciate your time. It's been
glad to
super
help.
meaningful to me to hear, and I know that our audience will absolutely enjoy hearing this story.